evening and welcome to Face the Nation. It's the 13th of March 2017. It's a Monday evening. You're watching us live on TV1. We're coming to you live and direct from our Stein studio complex here in Ratmalana. University ragging, a subculture, politics, or a set of isolated incidents? Without any further ado, I'd like to introduce to you our panel of guests. Professor P.S.M. Gunaratna, Vice Chairman of the University Grants Commission, joining us for the first time on the show. Good evening to you.
Good evening.
Professor Anuruddhi Edirisinghe from the Department of Forensic Medicine, University of Kelaniya. Good evening and welcome to you.
Good evening.
Also joining us is Dr. Mahim Mendis, former Dean, Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences at the Open University of Sri Lanka. Good evening to you.
Good evening.
And also joining us on tonight's show is Dr. Arcire Rodrigo, who's a psychiatrist at the Department of Psychiatry, University of Kelaniya, as well as a senior lecturer. Good evening to you.
Good evening.
We'll also be joined by Mr. Lakshan Dias, attorney at law and a prominent human rights activist later on in the show. I'd like to pose my first question to Professor Gunaratna, who's the Vice Chairman of the University Grants Commission. Now, the University Grants Commission is the governing body of 15 state universities established under the 1978 Universities Act.
Yeah, that's right.
Professor Gunaratna, the incidents of ragging keep increasing. As the governing body, what have you done thus far?
In fact, I would say that these 15 universities are independent, autonomous, to a great extent, autonomous bodies. They have their own governing councils. They also can take their own actions against the ragging within their maybe walls. But only thing is that University Grant Commission and the government can strengthen their hands through certain regulations. Say the 1998. So the first Prohibition of Ragging and Other Forms of Violence in Educational Institution Act was passed. That is number 20 of 1998 Act. So this Act clearly identified what ragging is. And also most of the ragging is unbailable offences according to this act. But then time to time University Grants Commission had issued certain circulars to implement this act within the universities. But in the recent past we paid special attention to this form of ragging taking place in universities, and we established a special centre. In fact, this is first we established a center called Gender Equity and Equality. So that is GE. So, but additional responsibility was given by the UGC to this center, also look into the ragging issues in the universities. So that under this, this particular unit, we were able to establish an online mechanism. So that anonymous mechanism that students being subject to ragging or any other party can give anonymous complaints to the system. There are numerous ways that those complaints can be made. There is a web page, so web page complaints can be done. Also there is a 24-hour hotline, so that can be done through those hotlines. Also emails are accepted. Also there is a way that interactive voice recording system, through that also the student can complain. If I give you the results of after this implementing this, so that we have altogether got total complaints 122, but then we act on 72 complaints because the 50 odd complaints are, that details are not sufficient to act on it. So there is a particular director. Director is a respected vice chancellor, respected former professor, Professor Uma Kumarasamy. So that under her, that that once the complaint is made, automatically there is a system to alert her and also alert the vice chancellor of the particular university, then system take place, action is being taken from that point onwards.
So, Professor, you're saying that there is an online mechanism to ensure that students who are the subject of ragging can make complaints anonymously. What's the team like? How many people are there to assess these complaints?
Now that online mechanism, like 24 hour, there are people who listen this online, so that there is a 24-hour center. But then the director
we're talking about 15 universities.
15
students of 15 universities.
That's right. Okay. But still that
my question to you, Professor, is what is the quantity of the team that is accessing these emails, accessing this online methodology?
That is, in fact, that has to be transferred to this, center. These people, some people are not, they are not eligible to, read these through and all that, because they are some different level of people, but then they have to transfer to the experts. Experts are, few experts. For the time being, we have a director plus few people there, but that up to now, if you can see the volume of work that we have from January, February, March, after the implementing, we got only 122 complaints. All 122 complaints were addressed, but because of the, as I said, that only 72 had been directed to the particular universities to take action. So therefore, that, of course, I think the number of people employed by this unit is right now is sufficient to address the issues that are coming to the center.
Thank you very much, Professor Gunaratna, Vice Chairman of the University Grants Commission. My next question is to Professor Anuruddhi Edirisinghe, Specialist in Forensic Medicine at the Ragama Teaching Hospital. Professor Anuruddhi, is there a gendered aspect to ragging? Because you get the male stereotypes, the female stereotype of a submissive female, and then you get the alpha male. So does this play a role in ragging in universities?
Certainly there is, because our society, the gender stereotyping and the societal thinking is brought in to the university, and this is the place where a lot of young people meet, and sometimes it's the experience and where you will be meeting your future partner there, and that to that certain aspect, and also, as you know, the education system as such, now we are getting more and more female students coming to the universities, and now, for instance, the faculty which I am teaching, 65% is females, and definitely lot of females, and given the gender perceptions of our society, females are, I would say, less empowered in the way to address, if especially when the power balances are taken into account, they are not strong enough, or they don't bring those qualities from family, from schools, to not to be subjected to even to go to the level of sexual harassment. So that's the very saddest part in our society.
Professor, are you saying that although we have a majority of female students in universities, in most faculties, they are not empowered, the majority?
No.
They're not empowered?
No. Majority, they are silent sufferers, actually.
Silent sufferers. So where have we gone wrong? Where have we gone wrong with our education system?
Well, I would say it went wrong from our family values to school values, and then to the values in the whole society. Now, if I look at my own life, I went to Devi Balika and I travelled in the bus. My mother never taught me to shout when there is a person who is harassing, who is touching me, I silently suffered. And the same if you think about majority of the students, that's where we haven't strengthened the family, the school. We haven't taught our children how to respond to this issue because it's hardly ever talked about. And at the end of the day, once or twice, because it's a problem like an iceberg phenomenon, only you get the few reported cases. As a forensic person, I get only involved when it comes to the police, but silent sufferers are the majority. And what has gone wrong is from the family, the society, how to respond to this issue. We have not been. We have not taught our children, your body is your responsibility. That message, I think, has not gone in properly.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Anuruddhi. I move my attention to Dr. Mahim Mendis, former Dean, Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences at the Open University of Sri Lanka. Dr. Mendis, is university ragging a subculture? Does it have something to do with politics, or is it just an isolated set of incidents?
Well, I should say that it is nothing wrong in calling it a subculture, because it is a way of doing things in the context of certain universities. I wouldn't say that the subculture in that sense operates in every single university in the same way, but it's still a subculture, and there are unique ways in which people do engage in ragging. So there is no harm in calling it a subculture. But at the same time, I also see that there are certain segments within the university population who get some deviant pleasure. They're not part of the subculture, but aid and abet ragging. They have no pleasure. They gain no satisfaction in preventing people from getting ragged. They would see, they would observe, they would get pleasure out of such perpetration of violent methods, you see, on other people. So that could be a psychological problem. These experts will tell you more.
What about the politics that exists within state universities?
You're asking me whether the politics in state universities have an impact on ragging, is it?
Absolutely.
Well, now some people obviously have been using this interpretation over and over again, that ragging had been a source of strength for certain student political groups to recruit people into their ranks. But again, I do not want to generalize and say there are certain political affiliations, political party groups, student political groups strongly believe in ragging in order to get people into their ranks. So this goes back to my previous explanation that it is all to do with the personality of certain people. Some get pleasure out of this matter. And it is wrong in a way to say that politics and political groups have anything very strongly to do with it.
Dr. Mendis, is our education system one with disparities?
Obviously, absolute disparities. And this again, when you look at the student population at any given time in the universities, we know very well that certain students coming from a certain political, social, cultural, moral background are not in any way inclined to perpetrate violence against other people. Now, this I would say, not that I'm biased towards a particular group of people. I myself come from a private school, and I do not see people from the leading private schools, for instance, engaging in violent suppression of other people, ruthless, contemptuous, disgraceful behavior. I don't mean to say that 100%, 100% it is like that, but very clearly the perpetrators of violence seems to be coming from a particular background, and that background is reflective of enormous discrimination. They have been subject to discrimination, they are victims of social injustice, and they know that what is in store for them is hopelessness.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mendes. My next question is to Dr. Arciri Rodrigo, who is a psychiatrist at the Department of Psychiatry, University of California, because it is of paramount importance to look at the psychological aspect of ragging in state universities. Is ragging perpetuated by individuals who suffer from inferiority complexes or sadomasochistic tendencies? What really is it?
I think most people actually engage in ragging with the mistaken belief that it actually promotes solidarity, it's an icebreaker, and after ragging people will come out being better people. I don't think all these people have like pervasive psychological deficits such as what you have mentioned, inferiority complex, sadism, or they have problems such as psychopathy, right? But some people that who engage in these acts repeatedly may have those things. But I do not believe majority of them have these kind of psychological deficits in them. But many people, what they don't understand is like, most of them think it's a minor form of ragging, right? What I do is I just go and ask a couple of questions. Honestly, it can't like harm a person. But what they don't realize is people are unique and people react to different things differently. I have seen some people that who have gone through so-called minor ragging come out damaged, and they actually sometimes leave the faculty and they have some pervasive mental health problems such as depression and PTSD after so-called minor ragging. That is what they don't understand.
So you're saying that effects of ragging can be long-term?
Absolutely, absolutely. Like what we mostly see is like the shame and embarrassment. Like mostly it is short-lasting, but at times it can lead on to long-lasting mental health disorders such as depression and PTSD. And unfortunately we have seen some suicides in Sri Lanka as well, and some people leave the universities and other people have definite decline in their academic performance as well. And I have seen some people even after 25 years that they have significant impact because of ragging. So, for example, they have problems in forming good relationships because of ragging, and they still have lack of self-confidence because of ragging.
Do victims of today become perpetrators of tomorrow?
That is a general belief. Again, I don't think that we can generalize it, but some people unfortunately do become perpetrators after 1 year.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Arciri Rodrigo, for those insights. We are also joined on our show tonight by Lakshan Dias, attorney at law, who's also a human rights activist. He will shed light on the legal aspects connected to ragging. Mr. Lakshan Dias, there was the Prohibition of Ragging and Other Forms of Violence in Educational Institutions Act number 20 of 1998, which was enacted. Also enacted was the Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman or Degrading Treatment or Punishment Act number 22 of 1994. We find that in Sri Lanka we have an existing legal framework, law enforcement bodies. However, ragging continues to be perpetuated in state universities in Sri Lanka. Why is this?
I think I have to start this thing. Ragging is a form of, or ragging is torture. in my opinion. It's clearly torture. But unfortunately, the 1994 Act of cruel and inhuman and degrading treatment, it does not cover the private parties. It only covers the state parties. So there was a gap, or there was a gap for many years that they cannot, the law enforcement authorities cannot take private parties for torture, at least when it comes to the ragging. So that's why they have enacted this new act in 1998 to deal with the university ragging. So now we have very clearly defined act. I think it's one of the very good acts in my opinion, but unfortunately it's rarely used. One thing, the university community, the student community, they have created their own kingdom. They don't allow law enforcement authorities to come in and arrest people, or they are using various political and other tactics to prevent that. But if they apprehended, if they want, if the law enforcement authorities want, there are enough spaces within the university that they can implement the law. Now, if you take that law that enacted in 1998, it covers vast areas in relation to ragging. Number one, you can't do ragging. If you do ragging, if you involve with ragging, then you are liable to imprisonment of 2 years and any amount of fine decided by the court. If you involve with sexual abuses and ragging in relation to of sexual nature, then the liability of imprisonment will go up to I think 10 years, and then again any amount of fine decided by the courts. If it's involved with the damaging buildings or the properties, it can go up to 20 years. So the law is quite good and enough for the law enforcement authority to do if they want to implement the law. Not only that, not only students, they also cover the university teachers, and then also that covers that if anybody wants to prevent, and if they are being harassed, there are also further section on that.
So in addition to the sections mentioned by Mr. Lakshan Dias, the Act also covers criminal intimidation,
yes,
hostage taking, wrongful restraint, unlawful confinement. Now we have established that the Act is good and that it has been implemented. However, how do you explain the fact that ragging continues to be perpetrated and that the perpetrators continue to be free?
Yeah, I think we got very good example very recently from the Kelaniya University. Someone came forward bravely and said, I have been ragged by a group of people, and then they were produced to the Mahara Magistrate Court, and those perpetrators were in the remand for I think more than a month. Now, one other unique thing in this act is that there is a coverage or a protection for witness of this ragging. So that is something I also feel like unique, because if there is no protection for the witness, then nobody will come out, and because you have to live within the university community, if it's a very difficult task to protest while staying within the university community. I know some people who have taken this path and went through hell of experience throughout their university life after that. I mean, they were continuously harassed because there are politics behind it. There are two major political parties, all leftist political parties in this country behind this university ragging, or they are gain favors, or they are gain political grounds out of this university ragging. So I think it's not only a psychological thing or a thing that coming from a certain subculture. It's very clearly political, I mean, we have had discussion with these political groups, and we tried build a dialogue, but they said, well, this is not the only wrong thing that people doing in this country, so let it go like that. I know I can remember once I taken another anti-ragging activist, a journalist to Peradeniya University some times back, and I found me and my friend was almost like in a situation of assault by the political groups. So we somehow moved away from the situation. So this is a political culture. You cannot stop this ragging unless otherwise these two political parties commit that they will go against the ragging.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lakshan Dias. Before opening the floor for questions from two journalists, Nadim Majid and Charita Fernando, just to keep you informed of a statistic. In 2015, over 25,000 students gained admission to state universities. In 2016, the number was over 27,000. And in 2017, it's expected that over 29,000 students who pass their A-levels will make their way into state universities. How many of them will leave these universities after their degree programs with a sane mind? Ragging in universities, how has it become an ingrained problem within our system? Well, I'd like Nadim Majid to pose the first question to our panel of guests. Nadim?
It's a change in a change in tradition. I get to go first. Dr. Mendes, I'd like to start with you, seeing that you're the social sciences man on the panel today. Has there been, it's such a major issue in Sri Lanka, have there been any major studies or academic research of any kind conducted into the various aspects of ragging in Sri Lanka from the perspective of sociology, psychology, etc., to identify the causes, how it can be prevented? Has there been any kind of such study in the recent past?
Unfortunately, I cannot name a very significant study in recent times.
There has, so not to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge.
Not to my knowledge either, because I was doing some research beforehand, and I couldn't come across any research really that would give you empirical data that would then allow you to solve this problem with the measure of intellectual discipline. Why do you think there hasn't been any kind of research or that kind of study into this very important issue?
Well, quite an interesting question. I would say that to a very large extent, this society, not only in universities, but also in the society at large, at the macro level, there had been apathy and indifference to forms of violence. And people have been abducted, killed, murdered, you see. And, well, how many people really take these issues seriously? Of course, we, long time back, that is maybe up to 2013, 2010 to 2013, when FUTA, for instance, was involved in a struggle, well, we questioned many things that the government was doing, not only with regard to the university sector, but also with regard to brutal violation of fundamental rights of the people. So that happens to be a microscopic minority of people taking adequate interest on matters that will have larger implications. So the answer is, to a large extent, there is apathy and indifference. In the universities, as we know, not many people come out and very clearly identify the perpetrators of violence. And there should be more people fearlessly, courageously coming out to spot those people and assert themselves in such a way that will not happen.
Mr. Dias, you said that we have a very strong prohibition of ragging at Can I ask you, how many convictions have there been for offences under this Act since 1998?
One or two, according to my knowledge. People won't come out. People, I mean,
But even in cases where they do come out, like for example, you mentioned
Calania matter.
The Calania matter recently, where they were in remand custody. Is that case still pending? Is it pending before the AG's department, or is it at the district or high court?
I think the case is still in the magistrate courts of Maharar, and still. Only thing they were released on bail, and the case is going on. But unfortunate thing is,
do you think that the lack of punitive action being taken? I mean, yes, we have laws, as you mentioned. We even have a cruel and inhuman treatment law, but that doesn't stop cruel and inhuman treatment from happening even to date. To date, the media reports on incidents of brutality carried out by persons in power, not just in universities, even in law enforcement. My question is, do you think that lack of enthusiasm on the part of law enforcement, or that lack of prosecutory zeal, is causing this culture of impunity that allows the perpetrators to continue doing this?
I agree with you, and it's, as you said, lack of punitive action has given more space for them to continue their strategies and their violent acts. I mean, I don't know whether I can say so, but I don't even mind the law enforcement authority have their officers or their stations within the university if the university community continues to have violence like this. I mean, I'm living in Moratuwa, so we know one area of Moratuwa, they said it's more violent area, so they start a police post. So wherever the violence is there, I think we should start police post, because there cannot be end. I mean, I know we are talking about social involvement and then, you know, the social correctional things, but I feel the punitive action also have to happen, otherwise things won't change.
Professor Gunaratne, can I ask you, has the UGC identified any root causes for ragging in universities and how it can be combated, sort of nipped in the bud?
In the absence of, to our knowledge, in the absence of very good research in this area, I can't come out with the exact reasons. But for casually, we observe certain reasons. Say, one thing I had to tell you that maybe I have to tell the audience is that these are a cross-section of people coming from all sort of life to the universities. These are the children of the parents of this country. So how they become this, the raggers, or how this phenomenon is perpetuating is interesting thing to be studied, in fact, because I think maybe I may be wrong, but there is a greater majority of students may be involved in some form of ragging. So these are the children of the parents of this country. So then the second question is, then these are the people being subject to ragging in particular year. Then next year they become, majority of them become perpetuators of ragging. So this phenomenon is interesting. But something is, I think, related to, like, there is in our society, I think maybe the children are parental custody once they are up to the point they come to the universities. This is a new freedom they are gaining with the university admission. So this could lead to different things. One way I would say that is maybe sexual exploitations, like sexual exploitation of other people. Maybe it's minor, maybe major or different. Levels has to be studied. Or then the psychological satisfaction or pleasure, through annoying or irritating others. So these are maybe reason. But I would say there is a political kind of, phenomenon behind this. What I am saying is, one day I was sitting with one of our, I would share this, he would agree with me, the Nirmal Ranjit. He was in the audience. The student leaders were there. So what he said was very interesting. He said he knows to some extent how this happens. There is a political part of it. In these political groups, according to him, there are two type of people. One, he just mentioned these that the who actually being ragged, sometimes severely ragged. There is another group who like the saviors, like you get them from that group, and they started preaching them. So that what the word he used in that program, tel bedana kandayamaක් ඉන්නවා. That tela bedana. So that is the word he used. So this is how it's perpetuating. So this is then you maybe people coming from, especially that, I think what mindset is that rarely anybody who is coming from that his type of school background getting involved this kind of thing. But this victimized are basically, most of the victimized are coming from rural background. So it is easy for them, that there is no other life within the university. Just they get into this group, and they happen to be the perpetuators most of the time. They happen to be the perpetuators. So that is how this. So that if there was a interesting case recently. One parent came with the child admitted to a particular university, state university. What this parent and child said, in their family there is a differently able child. This differently able child is closely attached to this student who gained the university admission. So that he is the one who is giving a bath to this student, this child, and all that. He is the person who is looking after most of the time. So whenever there is a holiday and all that, he is soon going home and helping his mother with this differently able child. So then the seniors who perpetuators of ragging, then this man is missing. He is not involving anything. So that again they thought this man is because of going out of this, because of fear of ragging and all that. Then when they come, this particular student when they are coming to the university, they were given more severe rags. So that this student and mother came to me. Then we directed to the vice chancellor to look into this matter and investigated into this matter.
And what action was taken at the end?
That in fact I am not sure, but very recently this happened. That still I had to.
Professor Adrisinghe, you're part of the vice chancellor's task force at the University of Kelaniya. Can you tell me, what are the biggest challenges that you face when trying to carry out your work?
In fact,
sorry, I meant Professor Adrisinghe.
Professor, sorry.
Yes. Now, as you remember last year, I think maybe same somewhere in April, sir, this incident of ragging in Kelaniya happened regarding a female student because she wore a dress code which was not supposed to wear, and everybody put the blame on the academics and the vice chancellor not taking action. And at that time the University Grants Commission was also talking us about the prevention part, and as the first state university to appoint a task force, because we had a burning problem where this the protection of the student, and then the perpetrators and the university system. Of course, as he said, we had the strong good law there, but there was no system of implementation. For instance, at that time the Kelaniya University had only 1 or 2 marshals. There was, for thousands of students, there was no female marshals, and we had to recruit. So we had to make a action plan to respond to the immediate problem and
How
also
is the response
prevention.
from the students at the university, from the student bodies, the student unions,
Yes,
the
now-
IUSF,
now-
etc., the Mahashishya Sangam, etc.?
Yes.
How is the response?
Now, when we appointed as the co-chair of the with me, the other co-chair was the dean of the social sciences, and we got involved, everybody on board, like teachers unions, then the student unions, then the wardens, then the student centers, and then the Center for Gender Studies, and then the village, and then the mass media, police, everybody. It was a big, massive group, because everybody, when we initiated the project, everybody said, yes, this is something we should do, some concrete thing, and even the students promised us, like they will take initiatives for the prevention of ragging. And in fact, if I'm to say about the prevention program in the medical faculty, it was fantastic and superb, and the this was this year. Now earlier what we used, because I was a person who started, I am a person who believe not knowing the law is a reason why people perpetrate wrong things, and as a strategy, because of forensic medicine, we know people from the Aegis department. Mr. Parthavan and himself used to come to the faculty and give a lecture to both the newcomers as well as the first years.
Is it still happening, Professor?
It's still happening, and this year what we did was a unique way, where we started this prevention program with a student, a fourth-year student was doing a presentation, what is ragging and what are the effects. It was one of her own presentation which we did as an exercise, and she was given the opportunity, and then of course, as Asiri here, he did the psychology part, and then Mr. Yasantha Kodagode from the Aegis
So
department.
this is for the University of Kelaniya, right?
The Faculty of Medicine, University of Kelaniya, and then of course the computer, because the UGC was doing the web-based reporting online
Professor
system.
Gunaratna, just to cut in, is there such a mechanism to ensure programs like this take place at all universities, at all state universities governed by you?
Yeah, in fact that we had some workshop with the vice chancellors and the deans of the faculties. We informed them to have such programs. It's
Is
not
this being
like
done?
yeah, it's most of the places there are at least I don't know whether it is to the extent that Kelaniya did, but there are some programs. Maybe
But
some
hasn't this been made mandatory for all state universities to ensure that there is legal awareness programs conducted?
that at the UGC level we had workshop to basically to aware and to notice the importance of these things to the vice chancellors and dean. We requested the vice chancellor to implement such programs within their universities.
So don't you think that there's a loophole there? Don't you think that that could be rectified at UGC level, where the University Grants Commission informs all 15 state universities coming under its purview that this has to be made mandatory?
In fact, that what I would like to say, that the recent thing that what we are monitoring system and online recording system, that itself reflects where the problem is. There is some particular universities having more problem is not good for the vice chancellors and dean. That itself give a signal to that vice chancellor.
However, don't you think, Professor, that if there are programs conducted across universities island-wide to ensure legal awareness is created, then the incidence of ragging will reduce?
That I
don't
think
you think that could
that's
be done?
a good idea, but it's now it's up to the universities to have that. Maybe we can involve with the legal experts who would like to help with us, and we can go to the universities. There's no.
Dr. Mendes, I would like to ask you, now we can't say that there is an increase of cases of ragging because we don't have scientific data, right? But we have seen the extent or the extremity of some cases. So why hasn't the administrations of universities, why have they let this escalate to this level over the years? Have they lost complete control over students? I mean, the academics also should take some responsibility for this situation. Why have you all failed?
Well, what I can say is that at the end of the day, the university is a mirror reflection of the larger society in which we live. And there is increasing cases of criminal, you see, activities. No one is safe, not even prisoners are safe in this country. And what I see is that there had been a systematic collapse of the systems, and also there is the inability, an inherent inability on the part of people within institutions and outside to take concrete measures, assertively stand for what is right and ensure that such things will not happen.
Could it be because the lecturers themselves have come through the same system? Probably they've been ragged, or they would have ragged, during their university days, ragged the, first year students. These are the same people that come out of the system, and they are lecturers and become professors and eventually administrators. Could this also be a problem?
Yes, it is. As I said earlier, the people in universities, whether it be the students or the academics, at the end of the day, they have come not from a level playing field. They are victims of all forms of injustice, and they have incompatible ideas. They are not socialized by the same value system, and they look at things differently. So as long as these incompatibilities are there in the system at large, we will continue to have, different levels of indifference in the university to problems of this nature.
Professor
The
Gunaratna,
way I look at it,
yeah.
and yet another person looks at it, seems to be different.
Professor Gunaratna, now the 2017 budget, we understand, has allocated 10 million rupees to prevent ragging, to control the situation.
No, I would say it's not simply for prevent ragging. That is for the
elimination of ragging in universities.
Role that is for the Center for Gender Equity and Equality, because ragging also coming under that unit. So that is all sort of sexual harassments and all these things, and other staff to staff. There may be cases to do research and all these things. That is not only for that.
So, which means that this has escalated to a national level. Right?
Yeah, because that's why that we have given the recognition by the UGC. I would say there is an impact of that, because that once the people are strengthening and we are making this awareness campaign, and as a result of that, there is a trend that now I would say that in the Southeastern University, 50 students that gave some evidence and written complaints to the Vice Chancellor, that is being investigated right now. That student first years are now coming up with sometimes they are this thing. And also the universities, as a result of that, universities are more alert, and Peradeni, as a result of they had a good system. They just went into a particular place, based on the tip that they have received the Vice Chancellor and other people, like they are more active in this front because of the UGC's pushing them, and also UGC's support is there.
So on the one hand, just one minute, Nadeem. On the one hand, the government allocates funds to look into this issue.
Right.
On the other hand, we are training teachers at teacher training institutes.
Okay.
I personally know of someone who told me that it's okay to have a bit of ragging, it's fun. So I don't know, is there good ragging, or is there bad ragging? Because these are teachers that are trained at the taxpayer's expense, right? So you're generating a set of teachers with this mindset. How are you going to tackle that?
You are referring to the teacher training colleges.
Teacher training colleges.
Anyway, they are not under the UGC, but still what I'm trying to say, this is a larger phenomenon. That's why initially also tried to say something, because these are we have to understand, because the parents also don't understand sometimes, that they don't believe that my child is going to be a ragger. They are going to rag other people. So that is, they don't believe that they are a very protected child at home.
Right, but we are looking at my example is a teacher, irrespective of whether she is going in for the primary section, secondary or higher education. The government is training teachers.
Okay.
Now this particular person is a trained teacher to teach in English, and in her training institute, the seniors didn't like the junior batch to converse in English. Now they are being trained to teach in English, right? So my argument is, you can spend millions and millions or introduce legal, education, but you need to have a system to, change their mindset. Is the government working on that?
Maybe it's the government alone can't do that. What is the government has to implement these through the agencies that enforce. So that is, maybe the UGC also have to take some part. But it is when the teacher training colleges are not under the UGC anyway. But then that's what I try to understand through that. Even those parties who were being subject to ragging, is that maybe that some notional acceptance is there among themselves also.
Dr. Thank you. Dr. Rodrigo, just one question to you. Now, some people who support ragging, they say they support harmless ragging, So I asked, okay, give me an example of a harmless rag. So that person said, measuring the length of a hall with a matchstick, right? So according to her, that's harmless, right? So I asked, what is the objective? No, you need that kind of thing, because that's the only way you can bring students of different social backgrounds to one level. So I asked, if you don't do it, එතකොට අපි ඉහළ සමාජවලින් එන අය අතර අපි කොන් වෙනවා. What is this psyche? Can you shed some light? What is the logic behind this thinking?
It is called herd mentality, like they try to create solidarity through this pseudo scientific thinking, right? I don't think actually it is going to bring about the changes that they are looking for, and I think in the pretext of doing that they are trying to assert themselves, their superiority. But let me tell you one more thing. Actually, I beg to disagree with some of the colleagues. Actually, we were all talking about certain social strata, like people coming from certain social strata do not generally engage in ragging. I think we tend to disregard about the unique human quality of coming against odds. Like earlier Sonali was talking about whether victims become perpetrators. Not necessarily, right? And whether the teachers or the lecturers, the professors who have gone through the system, can they actually see the problem as it is and in a more empathic manner? Of course we can, because we have the unique human quality. Like every one of us have the unique human quality of coming against odds. Like going through that experience does not mean necessarily that we are going to do the same thing. I think actually better human beings would actually see it for example, the person, like a son of a who drinks alcohol more often than not, will not become alcoholic necessarily, though they have genetic predisposition. They will actually think it is like, I know what I went through, I'm not going to do that to my son, right? Likewise, I don't think all the human beings, all the lecturers, all the teachers, as you mentioned, they are going to do that. I think we are missing a point there.
Thank you very much. On that note, we go in for a short commercial break. Ragging continues to be rampant on state universities. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Face the Nation. We're discussing ragging in universities. Before going on to the questions, I'd like to read some excerpts of the Sunday Times of November 1997. Selvanayagam Varak Prakash, aged 21, an engineering faculty student of the Peradeniya University, died last Sunday following complications from injuries sustained during ragging. The details in the Varak Prakash case have been well publicized following his death. He was ragged on October 6th, a few miles away from the Peradeniya campus, by a group of 7 engineering faculty seniors who forced him to do 500 sit-ups despite his vehement protests. Having collapsed during the ordeal, he was revived and forced to continue and finally taken back to his boarding house. The next day, Varak Prakash was passing blood and his father, informed by his roommate, brought him immediately to Colombo. For 2 weeks, he was treated at the ICU of a private hospital for kidney failure, but passed away last Sunday at 11:55 p.m. after lung failure. Now, this incident took place 20 years ago. Following this incident, just 1 year thereafter, the Prohibition of Ragging and Other Forms of Violence in Educational Institutions Act number 20 of 1998 was enacted. It was passed. So it took the life of one student for us to enact a law. The law is now in place. It has been since 1998. However, students continue to suffer at the hands of this social menace, ragging. My first question on this round is to Dr. Asiri Rodrigo, psychiatrist at the Department of Psychiatry, University of Kelaniya. You are also a senior lecturer. How do you explain the psychology behind individuals who sexually, physically abuse other individuals?
I think the main problem is lack of empathy, not having the knowledge or not knowing what other person is going through.
But how can this be the case when most students have either a mother or a father or both, generally?
I think it, like as Dr. Mahin was saying earlier, I don't think it is only applicable to university students, it is applicable to society at large, right? Think about the people who are committing crimes. How do they do that? Like, don't they have parents? They do. Don't they have brothers and sisters? They do. But they continue to do it, right? This is a crime. This is a torture, as my learned colleague was saying, right? So still they continue to do it because they lack the empathy. They actually do not understand what other person is going through, or they either unable or do not have the inclination to think what other person is going through.
Okay, so within the university system, we're talking about some of the brightest students who make it to a university in Sri Lanka. This is the most competitive exam that students go through after their A-levels, following their A-levels. How do you explain this? I mean, these are intelligent students that we're talking about.
Yeah, I think intelligence does not mean that they are empathic. Right?
Sure.
Yeah. So again, I don't think just because they are intelligent or just because they are in the university, they are necessarily knowing what other person is going through. Right? So psychologically, perhaps the intelligence and the empathy does not have very clear correlation.
Correlation, right. Dr. Rodrigo, given the fact that ragging is rampant in universities, in state universities, and it has been over the past few decades, with very little being done, although methodologies are in place, do you think that there needs to be a system, and this may be a sweeping statement, but do you think, as a psychiatrist, do you think there needs to be a system where all students' mental health is assessed?
Before coming to the university?
Yes. After gaining university entrance.
Again, I tend to disagree with you, like it is rampant, like probably it is rampant, but I don't think like majority of students, like I heard the professor was talking about majority of students engaging in ragging. I think it is the minority of students, but their voices are heard very loud, so because of that, the minority is reflecting what we are seeing is the minority. So I don't think it is necessary to like screen all the students to identify who are the psychopaths or who have the lack of empathy. I don't think it is necessary.
Because rational measures don't seem to be working. Students continue to be harassed, humiliated, subjected to sexual assault. Some die. So
Sonali, what you are saying is like
I'm asking you for your opinion, but you say that we shouldn't resort to such measures at the moment.
I don't think so. Like again, let me pose a questioning statement, right? So if we actually find students to be lacking empathy, should they be denied of the chance to get into the university?
No, but there should be a mechanism through which counseling services, psychosocial support must be provided, which I believe is currently not there in universities.
It is there.
It is.
It is there.
I think I'd like to come to Professor Gunaratna, Vice Chairman of the University Grants Commission. Is there a methodology, a mechanism to provide psychosocial support for university students at the moment?
I think it is up to the individual universities. University Grants Commissions, maybe for when you the size of the universities and all that, University Grant Commission is not organizing that kind of psychological support system to the students. So that is up to the individual universities. They are empowered to do those things. It is up to their council, their senate to decide what to do with their students.
Okay.
Right.
So don't you think that the UGC must get involved in this aspect, since it governs all 15 state universities, as we discussed?
But some aspects of the ragging is, in the UG's direct attention. That's why we recently established these systems and all that, because utilizing the Indian experience, we try to replicate similar model in Sri Lanka as well. But when the individual universities, what exactly should be doing is up to the universities council and the universities.
What is the relationship between the University Grants Commission and the Ministry of Higher Education when it comes to incidents of ragging?
In fact, when the ministry is giving the broader policy direction of the government where our higher education should go, say how it should be expanded, in which direction, that kind of broader guidelines we are giving. So it is up to the organizing, and the University Grants Commission basically have a regulating role as well as allocation of funds and the student to the universities. Basically, how it run is the university vice chancellor and the council has to decide how to run the universities.
Professor, don't you think that the UGC has a greater role in ensuring that education, higher education at state universities is made more holistic, so that students gain some knowledge of other required skills, competencies in addition to the
it's going
education?
against the whole concept of autonomy of universities. In the world, this is not that like in that way. The whole universities are competitive to each other. The competitive system has to be developed by each university. When it comes to ragging, when it comes to educational standard, so that it's going against the university autonomy.
So you're saying that the UGC should play a minimal role?
Not, I am saying not minimal role. University should give directions, but individual university has to decide.
Thank you very much, Professor P.S.M. Gunaratna, who's the Vice Chairman of the University Grants Commission. Mr. Lakshan Dias, Attorney at Law, my next question is to you. Now, my question to Dr. Asiri was slightly controversial, but you also in your opening remarks said that perhaps we need to get the police to intervene if we can't control these incidents of ragging, which I thought was a novel way of looking at this situation. I don't think other learned members of the panel quite agree.
There were attempts once or twice in Sri Lankan university history. In 1976, they tried to create a police post in Peradeniya University, and they have done it. But whenever the government tried to initiate or plant a police post in universities, which I don't think must, but if there is violence, if students are failed to stop violence, or the university authorities fail to prevent violence, I think that we should send police there without any doubt. I stand for that. I mean, if we do it for domestic violence, if we are creating so much of restrictions for the husband to not to create violence in-house in a domestic environment, and if we are calling police or other law enforcement authorities into certain violent situations to stop it, why can't we take universities? Now the worst part of it, when this female student was ragged and the perpetrators was remanded, the Kelaniya University Student Union continuously protested violently against that arrest and against that the legal remedy that given by the courts. So this is not, this cannot be tolerated. I have seen the freshers how the freshers were welcomed in Bergen University in Norway. I mean, every time a fresher comes, they give drinks, they give pamphlets, they give. I mean, I haven't seen any violence. That student system was not collapsed. I have seen how Hong Kong universities welcome their freshers. So there was no violence, there was no ragging. So if there is ragging, we have to first identify it as violence. And if they continue to operate violence, we must send police. There's no doubt about it.
Mr. Dias, how do you say we should tackle this issue of reluctance of victimized students to complain? This is perpetually an issue.
I think that is how it happens on the domestic violence. So when we try to enact the Domestic Violence Act in 2005, even the parliamentarians were not ready for that.
Sure.
So they said we are trying to bring the divorce law into Sri Lanka. So similarly, I think very importantly what we need is witness protection. When a student comes with a case, the university student must have extreme protection from the university authorities and state authorities, that he or she will not get harassed thereafter by the other perpetrators. That is why we brought the Victims Protection Law. Now, in the same case, if these perpetrators of the Kelaniya University students, if they harass this girl again, they all are liable under the Witness and Victim Protection Act. So they must learn the law, and if they harass them, they have to go to Court of Appeal to get bail, not the magistrate courts or neither High Court, has to go to Court of Appeal. So this must have strict rules and regulations must bring into the university if university community continues to operate violence in the university system.
Thank you very much. I move my attention to Professor Anuruddhi Ediri Singha, who is the co-chair of the Task Force to Prevent and Respond to Ragging, appointed by the University of Kelaniya. Professor Anuruddhi, when a student has been subjected to ragging and is either complains to the university authorities or to the police, a system gets activated. Could you, for the benefit of our viewers watching from home, just explain this process very briefly?
Yes. Now, when such incident, if the person wants justice, he or she is having two options. One is to come to the university authorities and complain, and then we will carry through, or any dean is advised that the empowerment of that student about the criminal justice system has to be done, and she is being aware of the law, and if she is happy to take both criminal actions as well as institutional mechanism, both actions are there. If so, the university administration will help him or her to come out with that, and we will stand with the student. Now, for instance, the last year, still, as you said, we are still under the witness victim protection part. The police, the university community still is protecting her, and we hope things would change for the best. But again, whether the guarantee, we cannot give any guarantee. It's only the time will tell whether what the actions we have done is the correct pathway. But if you take the faculty of medicine, most of the faculty of medicines are for zero tolerance. Not last year. It has been the practice, because you know, when it comes to doctors, we are not producing doctors with violent minds. If we produce a doctor who is violent on a patient, we have failed the profession. So in medical faculties, the zero tolerance have been there, and therefore punishments have been really strong. So as coming back to your question, so these people have two ways. So the university system, university complaint system, then it will go to the former, the inquiry. First it's a preliminary kind of a board inquiry, either one person or three or more than up to 5 can be appointed. That appointment is done by the VC, and then whether they all the facts will be taken, whether there is a case is first investigated. If so, then it will go to the disciplinary committee, and then they will if it is a case where according to the bylaws of the university, the committee will recommend, and the VC will carry out. So in that way, either the classes or the studies can be stopped, or expelling up to the expelling from the university can be done.
So at what stage does the counselling or psychological support mechanism get activated?
Yes. Now each university, I can only tell about the University of Kelaniya,
yes.
and I can tell about what is the mechanism is in Faculty of Medicine. Now, for instance, Dr. Aziri's department, any student, either a victim or a perpetrator, both people we send there for the mental assessment as well as counseling. Because if you think about a doctor, a medical student who is engaging in violence, that is a serious issue, and therefore we take as a doctor-patient relationship wise, we will send to Asiri and his team, and then do that. That health part starts from the very beginning. And if you take at the University of Kelaniya, there is a established center, which is a student center, where they are not trained psychologists, but they know the. Yes.
Like it is called Kalana Mithurup. Yes,
Yes.
Again, I am talking only about University of Kelaniya. Those people who are working there, the lecturers are trained in psychosocial counseling, and they do a very good job of victims as well as rehabilitating perpetrators of ragging.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Anuruddhi.
So if we are to come back now, last year's case, we counseled from the Kalanamithura center. The teachers went to the prison, Mahara prison, and then started the counseling part, psychosocial rehabilitation part from the prison. It's not that we have only looking after the victim. Victim is a duty. The perpetrator, getting back them to normality is also issue that we have to address.
But Professor Anuruddhi, now all of these incidents take place after ragging has been perpetrated.
No, the center was there from the very beginning, and when if there is a need, the system kicks in. It's not only to ragging, because there are so many other psychosocial needs of students which we address. I think Asiri is one of those. Kalanamithura center, he's a consultant also there. He also goes and helps the training part. So regular training, even now as a teacher, there are all the time training is going on, how to talk to students, and we take very actively as academics. We don't want our students to go into that really down situations.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Anuruddhi. Finally, Dr. Mahim Mendis, my question to you is, our children are taught to enter university at whatever cost. So, are we forgetting about the concepts of human development? Are we forgetting these values, the value systems?
It's not an exaggeration to say that there is a almost near total collapse of values in the system at large, not only in schools, in universities, among the clergy, among parliamentarians, wherever you may go. So this is arising from the fact that our youth, the children, are not on a level playing field. They are not recipients, beneficiaries of an education system that will do justice for all with regard to the value system and instill in them certain core principles of human values, human principles that will enable them to respect one another.
If I may, in schools, all children are taught to worship their elders, worship their teachers. There's all four religions, all four major religions are taught. But they come to university, and are all of these forgotten? What happens? What's this transition that takes place?
Well, when it comes to moral values, moral development, moral education, I do not think that most of the schools have a formidable system of moral education, like in Singapore, for instance. And we, even in the name of, now that is why we say, of course, personally, I believe in secularism, and where moral values can be taught, not specific, you see, for the government to take control of religion and for schools to teach religion, but more emphasis on moral values should be there. And that is the way that you can create a broad imagination in our young people to respect one another. So what we have is an absence of moral education, and at the end of the day, not even religious principles, because we are teaching religion, not even religion is taught properly.
What about the primary and secondary socialization process, which is ideally supposed to make people more compassionate? Where are we failing here?
Now, when the system at large, the schools in 9 provinces, 25 districts, do not have the same system of education, the major incompatibilities, even with regard to human and physical infrastructure. Schools with lavatories, without lavatories, schools with laboratories, without laboratories, with libraries, without libraries. But
these are inequalities that everyone has to deal with.
What do we mean everyone has to deal with? We should not be having a system at primary and secondary education where the government, you see, continues to have a system with unequal treatment for schools. This is a disgrace.
Thank you very much. I'd like to open the floor for questions from our journalists. Charita, let's start off with you.
Yeah, Professor Idris Singh, I would like to ask you, some time back, a leadership program was introduced involving the military. Did it help in any way to control ragging, or did it aggravate the situation?
I certainly don't believe it aggravates. Whether it had a significant impact, again, I have to tell, no research has been done, so therefore I cannot comment about it either way. But as a program, there are really positive things, because I'm a warden in the university, and if you go and look at the way that at least the personal grooming is concerned, from your arrangement of room to your bed and organization apart. There are a lot of things that we can learn from such experiences, and so there are so many positive things, but the money which we put in, whether we have a significant impact, again really good research has to come in, and if there are anything to be corrected and done, I certainly believe, because we need leadership. Because what I see in the students, especially if you look at the female students, they are not empowered enough to say no. If you talk to majority, they individually, nobody loves. But that inside voice is not coming out. So for that, you have to inculcate leadership qualities, empowerment, speaking out loud, all that. And we need a system. And if you look at when we have a new intake, almost all the universities and the faculty levels, we have in beginning the familiarization program, and there we address many of the things and how to be forward, but I think the socio-cultural aspect, the university, so-called university subculture, is so. I have some students have come to me in the 4th year and told me, now this is a medical faculty, I'm telling you, the way that the subculture is in the medical faculty, in the Kalaniya medical faculty, they are prohibited to talk in English, and they are if a consultant in the ward, we have appointments in the and they are not encouraged to speak out loud. And if anybody speaks, that person is later the students get together and then stop that person. And now our course is run in English, and some students have come to me and said, Madam, when I came in after my A-levels, I had better English than this, because I am not using it, because this environment, because that environment is not free to go to your maximum potential. That's why I as a academician, I feel in a way very sorry also. We try as much as possible at least in the medical faculty to create that free
So
environment.
Professor, we have one question from one of our viewers, Navodini Ratna Tilaka. She says, a majority of the undergraduates are brainwashed and tormented with this so-called subculture as soon as they enter universities. The most pathetic situation here is that these students who follow this tradition are being controlled underhand by certain extremist political groups according to their whims and fancies. Shouldn't the UGC, the government, the lecturers at universities come up with a mechanism to address these issues at a primary level in a pragmatic way? Professor Gunaratna, I'd like a response from you, sir.
Yeah, in fact, I think that, that has to be addressed somehow. The certain measures has been taken, continuously. But still this, organized nature of the students and all that, once they come to, I think there are some other aspects also to deal with. In our university systems are run like, what you call, it's a supply-based system. Students are given, funds are given, and the salaries are being paid. Proper assessments, even from the university grant commission side, I would say the proper assessments are not there. That now there are, recently we have introduced institutional review, program review system to make universities more competitive. So how we are going to assess a vice chancellor? What aspect we have to successful vice chancellor? So maybe we are out of competition. We are putting these funds and everything to a out of competitive system. Maybe the private colleges and all that you don't see. I'm not appreciating private colleges better than the state, but still they have to be in competition. So we are taking out of this competition. Somehow we have to make this institution more competitive, demand-driven system. So maybe some, overall reforms are necessary in this sector. It is very difficult to bring those things. Sometimes there is a reluctance from within as well.
So to bring this system of reforms, who should really take the initiative? Is it the state?
I think when it comes
to the Ministry of Higher Education?
Maybe the public awareness is very much important in this case. When it comes to the ragging, whether private education is needed, whether those are issues, not the political level only that discuss.
So
those
you're saying that there needs to be a public hue and cry?
Yeah, larger society should take up these issues. Otherwise we cannot change these things. It's a responsibility of the public as well. These children are children of the public of this country. It's not nobody else. It's coming from the larger society. Therefore parents has a larger responsibility toward this, I'm saying.
We have another question coming in from Natasha Fernando. She says, university administration's response towards ragging changes according to the political climate. Why is there no united front against ragging? I'd like Dr. Mahim Mendis to answer this as a former dean of, at the Open University of Sri Lanka.
Well, I personally believe there should be a united front at micro-organizational level, macro-organizational level, against all forms of tyranny and all forms of autocracy. And you see, anyone trying to impose one's will on the people, innocent people, need to be defeated. That is what we believed in. And we believed in that sort of thing as a federation of university teachers when we were involved in it. From 2000 to 2010 to 2013, when people were fearing and trembling, we spoke out, and we believe then and now and for tomorrow that the people should be united against all forms of tyranny.
Dr. Mendis, I find it a little surprising that, for example, we have social scientists advise policymakers and governments on how to address social issues in society at large. I find it surprising that there are no social scientists in Sri Lanka who have thought to undertake the research and undertake the studies necessary on this very important issue that affects their own houses of learning. Why do you think that is?
Well, as I said earlier, there seems to be at institutional level, within and outside, a very high degree of apathy and indifference to violence. Violence, all forms of violence, institutional, structural violence in society. And
we are talking about the culture of impunity in the country at large, yes, as well. But are you surprised that there's a culture of impunity in the country at large, at society at large, when there's a culture of impunity in the universities?
Yes, there is. There is a culture of impunity where the students take the law into their hands as much as politicians take the law into their hands, even inside Parliament.
So who's taking the cue from whom? Are politicians
Absolutely
taking the cue from the students, or are students taking the cue from the politicians?
That is why I said that the university is a mirror reflection of the overall society at large.
So how do you change that? So the universities are a reflection of society at large. I mean, many of the things that you see happening in the universities is what is happening on in society at large as well. How do you change that, if not by?
Of course.
I mean, you can always call for a public hue and cry, but I mean, this country's experience with public hue and cry has been that when it is devoid of any kind of intellectual discipline, it's that public hue and cry becomes the mob, and that mob becomes a lot more violent than a few isolated incidents of ragging.
Yeah. So there is no quick fix magical solutions. There needs to be structural changes. Primary, secondary, tertiary education system needs to be radically changed. Processes of education need to be modernized. And the state need to ensure that proper facilities are given to schools, primary, secondary level. As I said, 25 districts, 9 provinces are not recipients of a fair and reasonable education system. Whatever the government it may be, whether it be the United National Party or the Unity government or JVP government, whatever government it may be, since independence, these political parties have miserably failed in ensuring justice for the people of this country, at least in the case of the education
Dr.
system.
Mendes, do you agree with Mr. Dias? He proposed earlier that maybe it's time to establish police posts in the universities.
Well, I have the highest respect for my friend, but as someone who vehemently opposed a police state, militarization and regimentalization of society, we opposed the previous defense secretary.
But do you oppose the
confer-
enforcement of the law?
Pardon?
Do you oppose the enforcement of the law?
We are fully for the enforcement of the law. When something goes wrong, all people.
But the
all
police
people-
are being prevented from enforcing the law.
Recently, I think General Fonseca, Sarat Fonseca, with regard to the greater issues on human rights.
But on a micro
Very-
level, Dr. Mendes, the police are currently being prevented from enforcing provisions under the Prohibition of Ragging Act, as according to what Mr. Dias said, that the police are finding it difficult to enforce the law. So thereby, don't you think that we should facilitate the enforcement of the law?
We should facilitate the enforcement of the law. Law enforcement authorities need to implement the law that exists. I was trying to say with regard to the military. Former Army Commander General Fonseca recently said, I think last week, no one should be exempted, no one should be enjoying extraordinary privileges. The military should not. Police should not. The President and the Prime Minister
But a
and the
police
Cabinet of
post in a
Ministers,
university
no
is
one
not an
should be above the
extraordinary
law.
privilege. Sorry, Professor Adil Singh, do you think that there should be police posts in universities to combat ragging?
No, I think the teachers, if strong enough, they can look at their own house. If there is a situation where we cannot take, then definitely we will get the police. And so far I think it has been, I can only talk about my own faculty. I cannot talk about others. My experience in my faculty of Medicine, University of Kelaniya, the administration and the faculty and the staff is unanimous when it comes to ragging. It's zero tolerance.
Mr. Dias,
and
Mr.
we
Dias, it's
are
very-
not hesitant
sorry.
if there is such a thing to
Excuse me,
take.
excuse me a moment, Professor Adil Singh. Mr. Dias, as academics on the panel have noted, as Professor Gunaratna noted, as Professor Adil Singh had noted, it's very important, and even as Dr. Mendes said, it's very important to maintain the autonomy of higher education institutions. So you can't be policing it. How do you handle this issue? It's a very delicate situation. It's a tightrope that you have to walk. You can't compromise the autonomy of the higher education institutions, neither can you allow impunity. Where do you strike that
I
balance?
think I will start from what Dr. Mahim Mendes said on when he quote Field Marshal Sarat Fonseca on army. True. So same rule applies for universities as well. Now these university students are exempted from rule of law. I mean, they are violently involved in every aspect when it comes to university. I think the university teachers have failed in some situations, not all. In some situations, university teachers cannot control their students.
Professor Adil Singh, you always talk about your faculty, you say, I can talk about my faculty, but can you confidently say that you could muster the support of all university lecturers, irrespective of the university or faculty, to come to one, take a stand, to have one voice against ragging? Can you do that?
I think majority, now these phenomena are what we call bell curve, right? Any phenomenon. There are people, 5% who are very strong or who are in the both ends, good and the bad. And the rest of the majority, 90%, is in the middle. So it's the fixing that bell, shifting that bell curve to where we want. So, attitude building of the teachers should be coming within the system.
Let's look at what's correct and wrong. We all agree that ragging is wrong. It, on that moral ground, do you mean to say that you are not sure that you can get the support of all university teachers?
Now, if I look at our experience, last year's experience, and how the staff got together, all the faculties, and the support we are getting, it's amazing. Nobody thought that it can happen, but it is happening. But the results, I cannot say today we have implemented the prevention program. Tomorrow, as the button is pressed, results are coming. We have to wait, and it's like continuous awareness. I don't believe, yes, law has its law, and as a forensic person, a person who is involved in the criminal justice system, there is a place. But however, if we are to see a sustainable prevention, it has to come within your heart, within individual's heart, good and the bad. And how I will look at, if one individual, that violence part, the peace part is in each, if we can cultivate that thought, which is a difficult.
Professor Gunaratna, Professor Edri Singh was talking about how at the University of Kalaniya, at her faculty, they've established a mechanism, a task force. Are you aware if similar mechanisms are in operation in the other universities in the island, not just Kalaniya, in Jawadalpur, in Colombo, in Rajarata, Ruhuna, Southeastern?
We don't have that much of detail about the individual programs. I know for sure each university has their own program. But greater details I don't have at this moment.
Do you think that the UGC should implement a mechanism to monitor the progress that is being made via these individual programs? I mean, that way you could, instead of, without compromising the autonomy of the universities, you can play a supervisory role.
And that's a good idea, but only thing recently, through the online complaint mechanism, we get the records of the individual universities to what extent, that at least the people are coming up with this complaining system, anonymous complaining system. We have a distant monitoring system, so we can take up with the vice chancellors, yours is this, and yours is having this many cases, how it's happened. You have to talk to the staff, you have to talk to the dean, you have to come up with some solution. That's how we try to do that. I think greater details are required.
Will the UGC be publishing that data anytime soon?
Still, we have not taken a decision, but we are sharing with our system. We are sharing with that.
Dr. Rodrigo, I wanted to ask you, we were talking earlier about the importance of ensuring that there's no impunity when it comes to when it comes to violent crimes, basically. Do you think, in your experience dealing with victims of ragging, in the event that there has been punishment to the ragger, does that help in any way to alleviate the suffering of the victim?
I think that's a very difficult question. I can't definitely say that it has, but for some people it definitely is a closure. Right? So like they feel justice has been done and they can move on. Right? But I don't know whether I can generalize the statement and I can say it is applicable to all the people. But in general, I think justice should be done, otherwise it will perpetuate. In that way, the future generations will also feel safe when they are coming to the university, knowing there is a system to eliminate those bad apples.
Dr. Rodrigo, how do you feel about police posts in universities?
Sorry, I didn't get
How do you feel about the idea of having police posts in universities?
Again, I believe in human good. I actually do not think we need police posts in the university, but if need be, the police should come to the university and question people, and if they have to arrest people in extreme circumstances, they can do it. But I don't think actually the universities are as bad as that people are trying to make them to be. I don't think so, right? And they are essentially learning institute. There are certain extreme people who are like perpetrators, but I don't think like they should be seen as like breeding grounds of crime. They are not.
Yeah, Professor Gururatne, talking about the plan to eliminate ragging, right? You mentioned several times, you raised the concern of each university being autonomous. So
Okay.
Now I get the feeling that, you know, there's no concerted effort, there's no comprehensive national plan to address this issue, because I feel that you're more concerned about the autonomy of each university. What is more important here?
No, I think it's like this. That doesn't mean that UGC is, going out of its responsibility towards this kind of national issue. What we do at the UGC level is that we have regular meeting, and there is something called CVCD, that the vice chancellors and directors meeting with the UGC once in every 3 months, that we review these things. Under this, then we try to give some pressure to the vice chancellors on these issues, so that we try to implement things through the vice chancellors and their systems. So that is certain times we try to, we have to give circular instructions to follow these things and all that. It's not that we are going to manage universities ourselves. So that's it.
Okay, so what kind of resources have you given these vice chancellors to tackle,
No, even recently that there was an issue with the Kelaniya. Kelaniya came up with they don't have enough cadres. We gave enough cadres. Thereafter we negotiated with the Kelaniya. We tried to marshals and all that kind of things we are giving. So that is
what I meant was not only cadre, perhaps new thinking, innovative ways of addressing issues, bringing in experts. That's
now,
what I meant.
If I'm to tell about now, for instance, this document, Preventing Sexual and Gender-Based Violence, Strategies for University, this came up in 2015, right? It was a joint effort of the university academics, which was endorsed by the UGC, and with that initiative, actually the standing committee was established, and because we felt as academics there is a issue, and we have to take responsibility and give advice from our own disciplines, and a lot of, if you look at this document, lot of academics endorsed it, and it was a multidisciplinary setting. All the universities got together and then discussed, and these strategies were finally fine-tuned and came up as a document, and FUTA endorsed it, and we were able to get and we have the mechanisms, but we have to have people who take up initiatives, and I think majority of our academic staff have the heart and soul to do it. It takes time.
Have you thought of a new program for freshers, like an orientation program, a new way of welcoming them to the university, in getting the seniors also involved? Otherwise the seniors would take upon themselves the right to rag, right? Saying this is the way to unite people from different backgrounds.
Yes, it's now when we talk about the orientation program, all the time we have a good dialogue with the students, the senior batch, and then with them together we make and this innovative ways of how to be befriending. Maybe has to initiate a good dialogue and change that system, but it has to start. I personally believe it has to start from each individual's heart. Stopping violence is starting with the individual.
But someone has to show the way. Someone has to take the initiative.
Yes, definitely. So that's what I'm asking now. What you are doing as a mass media person is making that awareness and talking to the heart of the people, and let's do this together. With one single individual cannot do it. It has to be a collective effort. That's
Would you mind if I add something?
Yes,
in our orientation program for our junior batches, actually in the first week, the 3 hours are given for the seniors, and they are talking about adapting to new environment and conflict resolutions, and actually they are giving not exactly lectures, but they are giving talks about their experiences and how they sort of dealt with the situations what juniors are dealing at the moment. So actually we have given them the onus and the ownership. So I don't think they need to break the ice in unconventional ways, because we have given them the platform.
Thank you very much, Dr. Asiri Rodrigo. On that note, we go in for our final break. We'll be right back with our final round. Welcome back. Combating university ragging is the topic of discussion this evening here on Face the Nation. My first question is to Dr. Mahim Mendis, who was the former dean at the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences at the Open University. Throughout the discussion, we discovered that in Sri Lanka there has been no empirical data, no detailed research carried out to find out the root causes or psychological aspects of ragging. Now, in this round, I'd like our learned panel to, there's a call to action to maybe give some undertaking in order to curb this menace, this scourge that is ragging. Dr. Mendis, I'd like to ask you, would you be in a position to undertake a research of this nature, since it has never been done before in Sri Lanka?
Well, what matters is given the magnitude of the problem, the UGC can commission studies of the nature, and academics can support a major research in that direction.
As an academic yourself,
Yeah.
would you undertake a research of this nature in the greater good?
Well, the thing is,
You'll have the support of Dr. Asiri, for sure, and Mr. Lakshan Dias, as well as Professor Anruddhi.
This has to be a multidisciplinary
Sure,
research.
absolutely.
It's a mega scale research. At the moment, I can tell you I'm carrying out research on unnatural female deaths in this country, which is quantitative, qualitative, both aspect, and it's a mega scale research.
But
so
as
that
a
kind
first
of
step, what can we do? What can we do? Professor Mendis, what can we do as a first step to curb this menace? Let's talk about a call to action on this show. Instead of only discussing statistics and ways forward, let's also try to maybe take the first step.
Right.
An innovative approach, perhaps.
Away from your first proposal suggestion with regard to a major study in this matter,
Right.
my recommendation, my resolve on this matter is that the student community in the national universities need to take themselves more seriously in being more assertive against forms of tyranny from fellow students. academics in the university need to equally be committed in taking a firm stand against forms of tyranny and autocratic actions.
How do we
within the
unite
university
the
community.
academics? How do we unite the academics across universities to taking a stance on this?
Well, the thing is, it's not a matter of, you see, someone trying to unite the academics, but academics individually need to do something about it.
But that's not going to happen because it hasn't happened thus far. So do you think it has to come at ministerial level, at state level? How can it be done?
Well, the other institutions, other agencies of the state can facilitate this process. But as expressed by these learned members, it finally comes to whether the individual student or the academic is prepared to take a position on this menace.
Thank you very much. I'd like to move my attention to Professor Gunaratna, Vice Chairman of the University Grants Commission. Now, at the beginning of the show, we said that the UGC is the governing body of 15 state universities established under the 1978 Universities Act. Professor Gunaratna.
Yes.
What is the undertaking that you can give as the governing body of state universities, 15 of them, to ensure that this menace of ragging is curbed to an extent at least? Let's look at it innovatively.
I think what we have to do is that continuously reviewing what is happening in the universities, the cases reported and the numbers.
So that is
and
not
the
happening
action
at the
taken.
moment?
No, to some extent it is happening. We have to further strengthen this process.
Right.
Further strengthen the process. Even I would suggest to there are certain institutional review process. I would like to take up with the University Grant Commission even to one aspect of evaluation on ragging aspect as well as student discipline and ragging aspects also to be included into the institutional review process, so that institutions are reviewed and they are grading, so that also we have to be considered. The one thing, and also that it might not be I would say that further social engagement is with the larger society is very much necessary, because the parents also, there is a role to be paid by the parents, because these are the children of this country's parents, so that they should know where their children is, what they are doing in the universities, because they must be listening more than to their parents, more than to anyone else. So therefore, parents also should be aware. These are your children, not nobody else's children. Parents only think about in the first year when they are being ragged. So then they just be pretty protective. They want everything to happen from the university authorities to UGC to everybody is complaining. After that, I think there is no enough attention on what these children are doing. So I think parents also should take a responsibility of this whole thing.
Right. Also, Professor, do you think that the UGC could, in the near future, commission a study, a detailed research, as it were, to find out the root causes behind ragging?
Maybe
there
the
has been no
commission,
study
maybe
thus far.
the commission has to do with the other academics and all that. Commission is only few members and all that. When the commission can facilitate, I think. I would say commission can facilitate such process.
So the UGC is willing to come forward to facilitate
No, I had
the
to.
study.
I'm only one member. I had to take it up with my colleagues in the commission.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Gunaratna. Dr. Asire Rodrigo, my next question is to you. You said no to assessing mental health of all students who gain university admission. You said that you believe in the good of human beings. Going forward, how do we curb this issue of ragging that has affected so many hundreds of our students across the country?
So if I can start from where I stopped, if we can find a effective, feasible and efficacious way to harness that human good I was talking about, right? If we can find one package or a process where we can address second year students who are going to be perpetrators, and if we can curb that, I think after that particular study we might be able to find out what the reasons are, then we might be able to address those reasons through a process like that.
Doctor, don't you think we have enough professionals in this country to come up with that methodology?
What do you mean, enough psychiatrists or psychologists?
Psychiatrists, psychologists, professionals in general, academics?
I think we have enough and more academics, yes, but I don't think it is true for psychiatrists and psychologists. We don't have enough of them.
So just like in our reconciliation and transitional justice process, where the UN has called for foreign judges and a hybrid court, do you think then we need to commission foreign experts to help us with this process?
Certainly not, Sonali, no. Like, I don't think we need, but probably what we need is a bit more time, right? Like,
how much more time? Let's put a timeline on it.
You're asking a very difficult question. I don't know what time it would be. Probably after the study, if we can actually like come up with reasons, then probably it might take only about 6 months or so.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Asri. Mr. Lakshan Dias, attorney at law. There seems to be a lack of awareness of the law among new entrants to universities. They seem to be unaware of their rights, their responsibilities, the penalties imposed by law for ragging, all forms of abuse and torture. How do we go about creating this awareness comprehensively across universities island-wide? Concrete action.
There's a legal term called that, I can't remember the Latin term, that your ignorance is not an excuse. Now, we have young people of the similar age, 20 to 26, working in the garment factories. Are we talking about teaching them, nurture them and giving mentoring for these garment girls? Are we talking about bus conductors who are the same age, are talking about let the driver, giving the formation of that person? We are not talking. If they don't know law, then it's not an excuse. Let the law apply for them. So these people, first, they are not children. Don't try to put them like a children. They are not pupils. They are adults. They are citizens. They are human beings. They are voters, and they are politically active people. So don't try to put them into that box and they are children. So let the university teachers look out. You have no role to look after them. None of your university teachers have no role. Please teach them and go home. If they are not behave as citizens, if they are not behave as democratic citizens, let the law apply. So what we have to do to tell them, there's a university, there's an act, Anti-Ragging Act and the Witness Protection Act. If you rag people, this is the consequences. If you harass the victims again, you will be in the prison until you get bail in the Court of Appeal. So this has to be conveyed to the university students as it conveys to other segments of the society. If the segment of society is conveyed that if you violate the law, you will be punished, but you are not telling the university students. No way. University students has to work according to the law of this country. If they are not follow, no university students are teachers are responsible. They have no role in there. Let them go to jail. So that's all the law.
Thank you very much for those very powerful remarks, Mr. Lakshan Dias. My final question is for Professor Anuruddhi Edirisinghe, who's the co-chair of the Task Force to Prevent and Respond to Ragging at the University of Kelaniya. She's also a specialist in forensic medicine at the Ragma Teaching Hospital. We spoke of a zero-tolerance culture towards ragging, but you limited your comments to your university and your faculty. Do you think that this stance needs to be made more nationwide, as it were?
Yes, definitely. It's not only my medical faculty, my university is happening as Professor Gunaratna stated here. Each university is having their own mechanisms, but each one how they respond in the strength of the response, there may be differences, but there is a system. The only thing what we have to do as what you are doing from the mass media, putting pressure to get that system working efficiently, and I can tell you now, as far as what our learned attorney at law stated. Now, being aware of the law, the student handbook is having the Anti-Ragging Act there, but whether they have read it, because last year I went to each faculty giving starting the awareness program. Although it is there, how many read it is questionable. So you have to start talking. Whatever the awareness has to be given in every year, every time, whenever possible. And when we started this awareness program at the Faculty of Medicine, we can say the amount of reported incidents are getting less and less, and that is the outcome. So the strong prevention program has to be there. That's the way forward. It has to be short term, long term, intermediate, and involving the students, teachers, parents. Now, for instance, the prevention of ragging part, we talk to the parents and send letters after the letters, and even the boarding house people, we sent letters. That's the way. So without being proper awareness, so the strength has to go on with that. And of course, part of this prevention part is, if an incident happen, go to the criminal justice system without soft pedaling. The law has to law and order has to kick in, and then the system has to be strengthened and show our the administrators have to stand in the pressure of the so-called the political parties and stands for right and wrong. It is simple. Stand for right and wrong, which is a problem, as Dr. Mahin said.
Thank you very much for your views, Professor Anuruddhi Edirisinghe. Well, it was quite an evening, I think, and we managed to cover a great deal of ground. Some of the points that were discussed: there needs to be structural changes. Primary, secondary, tertiary education systems need to be radically changed. There needs to be an attitudinal shift and a program to ensure that the greater good of humankind is brought forward. Now, in 1975, 42 years ago, Rupa Ratnasili of the University of Peradeniya leapt off the second floor of the Ramanathan Hall to avoid grave sexual abuse. She was paralyzed, and many years later, she committed suicide. 42 years later, we're still talking about ragging. We have the necessary laws in place, the necessary methodologies to deal with this, but it continues to happen in universities in Sri Lanka. Today's discussion was just a precursor. We hope to take this forward. We at News First hope to also be the change makers to ensure that students at universities receive the dignity and the self-worth that they deserve. Thank you very much to our eminent panel of guests for joining us. Professor P.S.M. Gunaratna, Vice Chairman of the University Grants Commission. Professor Anuruddhi Edirisinghe, Co-Chair Task Force to Prevent and Respond to Ragging at the University of Kelaniya. Dr. Mahim Mendis, former Dean, Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, Open University. Dr. R. Siri Rodrigo, Psychiatrist, Department of Psychiatry, University of Kelaniya. And Ms. Lakshan Dias, Attorney at Law, thank you for joining us on this edition of Face the Nation. I'd also like to thank Nadim Majid and Charita Fernando for all the fantastic questions asked today. I'd like to end this show with a quote from Yehuda Bauer, who was an Israeli historian and scholar of the Holocaust. He said, "Thou shalt not be a victim, thou shalt not be a perpetrator, but above all, thou shalt not be a bystander." Good night.